Balake. Where is Balake at?
My name's Blake.
Do you want to go to war, Balake? I'm for real. Ron.
Ron is back, everyone. Welcome back for more SPTV, where every day is a great day. Not to be in a cult. Guys, I've been gone for, is it 5, 6, 7 days? We had an extended birthday weekend with my friends Natalie and George and Jenna and my 3 daughters and a whole bunch of other friends. We went down to Miami and we had an unbelievable amount of fun, but it is time to get back into business and get back into the saddle. And there is so much to talk about. And to join me in talking all about it all is the one and only Natalie Webster from Scientology, Life After a Cult.
Hello.
Hello. Oh my God, I undid the screen share somehow. Let me get your channel up here. For anyone not yet familiar with Natalie's channel, you can find her on YouTube at Scientology, Life After a Cult. We have so much to talk about.
So much.
I told you that I've continued to watch all of the Diddy coverage. And the videos that I did, the 2 or 3 videos I did before, we took a little extended break here. I did some content talking about the very interesting parallels that I saw between how someone like Diddy in the music and entertainment industry, holding the position of influence and power that he did in that industry, allowed him to get away with so much for so long. And the amazing similarities to me between that and, what we've all heard about how Jeffrey Epstein was able to get away with that in the finance and academia world, and how similar it is to how someone like a David Miscavige in Scientology is able to get away with doing the things that he does to people for as long as he has gotten away with it. And it's because these people hold positions of power where essentially the people under them or around them think that their very existence relies on continuing to stay in the good graces of that individual. And that was a thread that I saw in the Diddy verse that I thought was worth talking about because of the similarities in the Scientology verse. And some of the more recent articles that I've seen about the Diddy verse stuff, it's getting even worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And I said that the thread that I felt connected what I'm reading about to the Scientology verse is this idea. There's this Scientology concept called confront of evil. Confront of evil. And Scientology and Scientologists think that they have sort of a monopoly or the tools or a superior ability to confront evil and what exactly that means. And the similarities between what Danny Masterson got away with and how long he got away with it for, and him being able to get away with that in a community of Scientologists that are supposed to have a high confront of evil. And yet you have Danny Masterson and his whole posse. You have Ashton Kutcher wrapped up in that. You have Ashton and Danny wrapped up in the Diddyverse. And all of this is going on unobserved, unhandled. And there's just a lot that we can talk about here. There's also, even in addition to this whole subject, even much, much more that we can talk about. And before we jump into all of this, I do want to tell everyone that later in the week, I am going to be publishing an update for everyone on matters, all the good news and updates surrounding the SPTV Foundation. And you guys can stay tuned for that. I'll be publishing it to the SPTV Foundation YouTube channel, which I'm sure most of you didn't even know existed, but there it is. And so I'm gonna publish all that stuff on the other channel. But since we're talking about Scientology stuff here, what are some thoughts that you have? Oh, there you go. Who did that? Oh, I see. Okay. What are some thoughts that you have on this the subject of the confront of evil?
Confronting evil in Scientology, which is where, I learned and became familiar with it, for me was always, it was being put to me in a way of when something was being done to me that was evil, that I just needed to confront it. And to confront in Scientology is to be there comfortably and face something. So they really, for me, my experience was they twisted it. It wasn't about really confronting evil, because to confront evil is to face it and see it for what it is. That's what I feel it means. But in Scientology, it felt like you needed to be able to tolerate the evil and take it. And that's confronting it. Like, where's your confront of evil? Because you're unwilling to, do, like when I was a teenager and had to listen to the self-pleasuring stories of men that weren't allowed to do that at the time. Where's your confront of evil? You got to be able to confront that. I think it's a bunch of BS in Scientology.
To me, in Scientology, it actually meant something different, but I can see how that would be used to mean that in that situation as well.
Yeah, like, those lines they would throw in our face, like, get your manners in, and it was get up your confront of evil, because you might have an unwillingness to experience something that's less than desirable. You have to push through and make it go right. You have to still go and face it and put yourself out there. And it could be different. What the true definition of it is in Scientology and what it's meant for probably has a different context. What do you believe it to be?
So the concept confront of evil in Scientology, to me, was tied to the idea of reasonableness. Now, in Scientology, reasonableness is a derogatory word. It's used, it's inverted. So L. Ron Hubbard defined reasonable as, so in other words, it's almost like he's using it sarcastically, because he says in the WOG world, which means the world outside of Scientology, when confronted with some situation that, well, is either wrong, it shouldn't be that way, or just to be kind of hyperbolic about it, it's evil, right? It's bad. Someone with a high confront of evil would go, boom, like I'm going to do my best Tom Cruise impersonation, like, boom, I see you for exactly who you are and what you're doing. And I'm comfortable with the fact that you're evil. That doesn't, I'm not like, okay, so L. Ron Hubbard would say that someone in the WOG world would be so immediately uncomfortable with being confronted with evil that instead of just seeing it for what it is, calling it out for what it is so that you can then do something about it, they would make excuses for it, justify it, explain it away. In other words, be reasonable, offer reasons for why it's not really as bad as it might seem, or it's not what it looks like, or it's not this, or it's not that. And so someone who's being reasonable, L. Ron Hubbard would say, they're being reasonable because they have a low confront of evil. It makes them uncomfortable. They don't want to believe that someone or something could really be that bad. And so that's why Scientologists think that they're the ones, have been unplugged from the matrix. They've peeked behind the curtain. They know who the Wizard of Oz really is. It's just a silly little man like David Miscavige. And so because Scientologists have this high confront of evil, they don't go reasonable. And that's why, I think, what did Tom Cruise say in his silly black turtleneck video? He's like, I put an ethics ruthlessly on on others because I put an ethics ruthlessly on myself. That's a similar concept. It's kind of all related. Did he ever actually use the word reasonableness in that video? Reasonable? He was talking to Scientologists, so he very well might have been.
Yeah, I think he did, in terms of that, in the context of you cannot be reasonable about this. There's no excuses. It's like he basically, right out of keeping Scientology working, you're with us, with us or against us, cult mentality, win or die in the attempt, which is right out of there too. L. Ron Hubbard says that. It's like, we're all here supposedly on this equal footing. And Tom Cruise has such a confront of evil. I don't know why he thinks that, because I don't know, maybe stop turning women into suppressive people, because everybody he marries becomes an evil suppressive. So does that mean he has a confront of evil, or does that mean that, he's just getting people dirty?
One of the things that I saw this morning that just jogged my memory on this confront of evil thing was a speech that Ashton Kutcher and Demi Moore were giving at some Clinton Foundation event about trafficking and slavery and all the slaves that are actually, there are more slaves existing in modern society than even historically. And then they went on in their speech to be like, and you might think we're talking about, other parts of the world. And they were like, no, it's happening in America. And my thought was, it's literally happening in Scientology. What are you talking about? Like, and this is where I was like, it just jogged my memory on this Confront Evil thing. Cause you've got Scientologists who, can go to Flag and get auditing, and they got like a 13, 14, 15-year-old boy or girl Sea Org member coming out saying, I'm here to get you for your auditing session. And instead of having a Confront of Evil of going, this is a child who's become an indentured servant, is not being educated, is not in school, will not grow up with a normal life, will not, like Scientologists, it's one of the lies they tell themselves that they actually have any confront of evil at all. Yeah. And when you had all of these Scientologists that existed around Danny Masterson, who then existed around Ashton Kutcher, not many people know Ashton Kutcher's personal assistant was a Scientologist, or the person who was his personal assistant was and still is a Scientologist. Ashton was surrounded by Scientologists. All these people were also exposed to the Diddy-verse. These people apparently have no confront of evil whatsoever. And so let's say, in Scientology, if some Scientologist, let's say there was some ethics officer or some fundraiser who was going on and on about the evils of psychiatry and how Scientology is taking down psychiatry, and that's why we need your donation this week, Thursday before 2. And if the Scientologist said something like, I just think that some psychiatrists really are probably trying to help people. That's when they'd be hit with, you need to raise your confront of evil. Mm-hmm. You need to really come to terms with what's happening on this planet, and Scientology's role in it. And you're being reasonable, and you need to raise your confront of evil. That's a perfect example of how that term might be used against someone in Scientology.
Exactly.
And to see all the Diddy stuff happening, and to know that Danny Masterson and Ashton Kutcher played a role in that world, and to know that the amount of Scientologists that allowed and justified and made excuses for Danny and Ashton and Diddy, I just thought, hey, this is an interesting conversation to have.
Yeah. I think a lot of that is driven by the belief in Scientology that L. Ron Hubbard says you have to flow power to power. So somebody who is in a position of power or influence, that as Scientologist or a group member, you have to support that person, which sounds by itself like, okay, that kind of sounds, fairly rational. But they take it to the next level of, by covering up the crimes of somebody who is in a position of power and influence, or at least they believe them to be, you're then, you're flowing power to power. It's okay, like what they're doing, because they're creating a bigger impact. When you think like the Sea Org members that did free labor for Tom Cruise and how that was justified. It's been going on for years. It's because we're flowing power to power because Tom Cruise is doing so much.
Absolutely.
It's just not true.
Absolutely. You just jogged my memory on things that if we look at them with the benefit of hindsight and clarity, not being in a cult anymore, are examples of how Scientologists are just lying to themselves about having any confront of evil whatsoever. And how about this? Remember that the policy that L. Ron Hubbard wrote called Responsibilities of Leaders? It's also called the third dynamic power formula.
Yeah, that's the power to power one. Yeah.
It's the whole essay about Simón Bolívar and Manuela Sáenz, his mistress, or there was some other word that L. Ron Hubbard used for her. And it was a tale of how Simón Bolívar rose to power and became one of the most beloved liberators. Was it Colombia? Was it Colombia? I'm not going to look it up, but I think it was. And his rise to power and his fall from grace, and how Manuela, if she had properly applied the third dynamic power formula, could have actually prevented the downfall of Simón Bolívar. And so this is a real historical example. And this is L. Ron Hubbard saying how Manuela really should have behaved in real life. It's not theoretical. It's not a parable. It's not just a story meant to have some other meaning. And he literally said that she should have gone around behind his back without his permission and without his knowledge, and specifically without asking his permission, and have his enemies secretly killed.
Mm-hmm. I never tell him, because that was part of it, is you take care of those things. When I was in the Sea Org, Aaron, and I was working in the Dunder Mifflin level at the Continental Liaison Office, and part of my job was to get missions fired, to coordinate the funds to get people there. And the flag banking officer is the person who's ultimately over all of the finances. And I'll never forget when she told me, because it was after the San Francisco earthquake, and of course people needed to be there to get the org back on track and producing, and there was no way to get it done without committing what in Scientology is called a financial irregularity, where you violate finance policy. There was no way to get it done without doing that. And she said to me, she's like, this just needs to happen. You need to handle it. And I don't want to know how you did it. Just take care of it. It's that flow power to power. Exactly what you were saying. You got to go and do these things and then protect the person that you're flowing power to from even knowing what it is you did. It's
That's
just
right.
it's insane. That's totally a thing in Scientology, very much so in the Sea Organization. And I want to know what you think about this, because I feel like that also comes from a sense of everything is my responsibility. If I see it, I need to act on it. If I see it, I need to take responsibility for it. And it becomes that way in a very twisted way in the Sea Organization. And that's where people end up, I think, making a lot of mistakes and hurting people, is because of that. In the name of, it's for the greater good. How many people sacrifice their relationships, their family, their sleep, their food, all in the name of flowing power to L. Ron Hubbard, to LRH, to forwarding his mission?
That's right. That is absolutely right. I totally agree with that. And for those who may not be familiar with this, so what he said in this essay is that if done properly, Simone Bolivar would have had absolutely no knowledge of what Manuela was having done to protect him behind the scenes. And maybe he would walk by the barn and he would see a pair of just pink legs sticking out from underneath the gate of someone she had recently had killed. And if he were to ask, hey, what are those pink legs over there? Someone would be like, oh, never mind, dear. It was just, someone had a little accident and it's being taken care of. Pay no attention to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so this, the shorthand for this in Scientology was just pink legs. You need to pink legs it. And what does that mean? Do whatever needs to be done to handle this, even if it violates all of the existing rules. And don't you dare commit the sin of asking for permission just because you can't handle the pressure of having the responsibility for taking care of this on your shoulders. Don't you dare delegate responsibility up the org board.
Exactly.
Take responsibility for it yourself. And that creates an environment where people are expected to break the rules and even break the law. And yet the organization can still sit there and go, what? Haven't you read our policy that says never break the law?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the thing is, Scientologists, if they actually had a confront of evil, would read this policy and they would go, that's evil.
Exactly. Having a true confront of evil would be standing up and saying, you know what? I'm not going to violate the policy. I'm not going to go and take away those people's meal cards so they have to have beans and rice. I'm not going to do that. But it gets twisted. And I think that's part of what contributes to the damage that's caused to people in Scientology, and specifically in the Sea Organization, is it becomes this twisted idea of what loyalty is, because of that exact policy and essay that you're talking about, and the idea that you have to flow power and just confront evil and get through it because it justifies, if it's the greatest good, if it's the best for Scientology, then you should be able to do it. I mean, that's scary. That's next level. I mean, what would you call it? Like a zealot. Ultimately, they want to create zealots who will do whatever it takes to protect Scientology, even if it means sacrificing your own family. On my channel, before I lost internet and cell phone reception this morning during the recap. We were in the middle of talking about what happened to Stacey Moxon, Kendrick Moxon, Scientology's attorney / bitch boy, who goes and does these smaller cases for Scientology, despite the fact that his daughter tragically unalived herself in a very harsh way. And it was known. And here he is all these years later, still protecting Scientology. He's flowing power to power, his confrontive evil. All this was run on him.
Yes. What a perfect example
Yeah.
of a guy who actually has no confrontive evil.
Yeah.
He has allowed himself to believe that what his daughter did to herself and the reasons why aren't really the reasons why, because he cannot confront the fact that his daughter, working at what is supposed to be the Scientology worker utopia out in Gilman Hot Springs, California, working directly under David Miscavige's leadership, the international management base, her life was so miserable, so meaningless, so disgusting that she would rather take her own life to continue to live that way. He can't confront that. And it is Scientologists who have convinced themselves that they have such a high confront of evil, who actually have practically no confront of evil. It is people like that who allowed the Danny Masterson thing to go unhandled, who have allowed and the Ashton Kutcher. And again, this still carries over to the Diddy verse.
It does.
Because it means all of Danny Masterson's friends, all of Ashton Kutcher's friends, they knew what Diddy was up to. But they continued to value whatever it is they thought they got from associating with Diddy over confronting the evil that it was.
Yeah.
And it's not just Danny and his friends, it's everyone else. Just look, I mean, this is going to be the scandal of the century when we see how many powerful people in the entertainment and music worlds have known about the Diddy thing the whole time and said nothing. It's amazing to see how many channels are doing compilations from different shows. I saw something about the Kardashians this morning of the different things that have actually been said, even on the Kardashians TV show, where you could see, was Khloe, I get them all mixed up, I'm sorry. It might've been Khloe or Kourtney, where she was talking about Diddy and all of a sudden, like, you could see the shame on her face about the stuff that they had seen this weekend at the party. And even one of her girlfriends was there on this little clip that I saw. And one sister was asking the other sister, oh, did you meet, apologies if I got the name wrong. Did you meet Kourtney's new friends this weekend? And the friend was almost embarrassed to go, actually, I did. And the one sister's like, you did? And Kourtney was like, Kourtney was like, yeah. Like, they were even ashamed.
Yeah.
And this is what they left in the TV show.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's not just Scientologists who have no confrontive evil, but what's unique about the Scientologists is they consider that's one of their hallmarks.
Yeah. And something to be proud of, something to be, that I took action, that whether it could have been breaking a law. Look at your nemesis, Ben Monahan. What's his name? Ben Monahan, right?
Yeah.
He was the Estates Project Force the person in charge of Sea Organization boot camp. And when my daughter was there and wanted to leave and he wouldn't put her on a routing form, he was on this total power trip about it. And I said, hey, she's 14. I'm her mom. She's not in school. I was told she's going to be. You need to put her on the routing form. She doesn't want to be there. She needs to be on the routing form to leave. And he told me that the Sea Org is above non-Scientology law. I mean, I was just like, are you serious with this? Did you just say that to me? And I don't know how long you were an active public person after you left the Sea Organization, but I was an active Scientologist for many years afterwards. So I had some distance between when I left the Sea Org and when I left Scientology. And I don't know why I expected it to be different. It's because I was told it was different. No, things changed in the Sea Org. It's a gentler, nicer Sea Org now. It totally was not. And him saying that to me and trying to address me as, you're still a Sea Org member. And I'm like, the hell I am. but that same thing, he totally felt he was in the right to break the law and even violate Scientology's own policy about when somebody supposedly wants to leave, you put them on the routing form to leave. They don't just feel so justified in doing that. And I think it's that same mindset with the whole Diddyverse and everything happening is you feel so entitled to that you cannot be touched, that you just get to do what you want to do, regardless of how that affects somebody else.
Yeah,
I totally see
absolutely.
those similarities.
For anyone just joining us, I will remind you can find Natalie's channel at Scientology Life After a Cult. Why don't we do this a little bit like you do it on your channel, which we see what people are saying in the comments about all this as we go.
Sure.
And we'll say hi to some people who were here a bit earlier we're here early. Katie D, don't think I've ever caught a live watching from Ireland.
Ooh.
Well, hello. I won't try to do my Irish accent. And also, I'm not sure which comments are on my channel and which comments are on your channel because we're combining them right now. But hello, Katie. And okay, let's see. What do we got here? Sir Crepitus is in the chat. Always good to see you, Sir Crepitus. And whoever you donated those to, oh, it is my channel. Thank you, Sir Crepitus. Much appreciated, sir. Let's see. Okay, Sam says, with the recent announcement of the LDS Church's President Russell M. Nelson Day in Utah, I can't help but wonder if someone like David Miscavige, the leader of Scientology, might also be honored. What do you think about the chance of something like that happening?
I think that if it were in if they did it in Hollywood, a smaller area, or even in California, it wouldn't be. And usually these proclamations, it's not every year that's your day. It's like when they used to share in the cult about, oh, it's been declared L. Ron Hubbard Day on March 13th in Tennessee. It's like, it's like, let me put it this way. Now, my grandma was a big deal. My Hawaiian grandma, she held a Guinness Book World Record for the largest collection of novelty sunglasses. She played pool in the Senior Olympics. She somehow lived on only the water in the ice of her margarita and her Coca-Cola. And when I look at you look at somebody like that. So it was Betty Webster Day after she died. We got a proclamation done and it was Betty Webster Day in Hawaii. It's not year after year after year.
Oh,
you know what I'm saying? That's something that Scientology misrepresents. And I wonder too, is that year after year, it will always be known as President Russell M. Nelson Day, or is it just for that one day? I think Scientology's gotten L. Ron Hubbard Day done. Now, if they start doing David Miscavige Day, then they have seriously jumped the shark, because old-timer Scientologists, I don't see that going down very well, because some of them are there because they still think that the ship can be turned around in terms of the abuses and things they don't like the Ideal Organization program with all the money, all of that. And they want to blame David Miscavige for it.
I just realized something. So he's talking about that the state of Utah declared President Russell M. Nelson Day, and he is the LDS Church's president. So it's not the LDS Church that declared a new church holiday. It's the state that declared a state holiday. So this wouldn't be Scientology creating a David Miscavige Day. Oh, but it would be Scientology trying to get legislators to create a David Miscavige Day.
Exactly. You just have to do the proclamation and get it approved. It's not super hard to do. I mean, now that I think about it, I'm going to get Natalie Webster Day here in Minnesota.
Oh my goodness. So yeah, I personally think Scientology would not go down this route, because David Miscavige is, I was going to say his power depends upon people. Scientologists continuing to believe that what David Miscavige is doing is what L. Ron Hubbard wanted. And I don't know how he would convince Scientologists that it was okay to even ask for a David Miscavige Day. But we could have said that about so many of the things that David Miscavige has actually done.
True. That's so true.
Yeah,
you're totally right.
Arnie Van Halen, welcome to the chat, and thank you so much. We've got Kelly Copter in the house.
Kelly!
Tom Cruise is going to create the new reality. Yes. What did that mean to you in Scientology when they would say, we are we are creating new realities. What does that mean to what did that mean to you in Scientology?
When I was a Scientologist, for me, that meant creating per the creed of Scientology, a world without war, without insanity, and so on and so on. That was the new reality that we were going to create by spreading Scientology and clearing people, that it would result in these things. It took many years for me to wake up to the fact of, wait a minute, if we're trying to create a civilization without war, without insanity, without criminality, and we can't do it in one organization or on one street, how are we supposed to be doing this with the entire planet? Like, it took me so long to realize, and it was when I realized David Miscavige was lying at the propaganda events, that the things he was saying, like Kimora Lee Simmons is a huge supporter of the way to happiness, wasn't true at all. Once you realize that those are lies, then you start to see that it's all North Korea style propaganda to keep people in line and believing that their money, their sacrifice is going to go towards good. And this is something I think a lot of people might not realize. Many Scientologists sacrifice a lot, and they do so because they truly believe it's for this greater good. They believe that you can create a new reality, that we just got to suck it up for this moment in time and just work 100 hours a week and eat those beans and rice and live in a bunk bed, and that we will get there. But you can't do it within your organization. Think about like how many, we didn't have real friends. We had group members. We had fellow soldiers. We were doing a job. None
That's
of that
right.
lends itself to without criminality, insanity, and war. That was never the goal. That to
You
me
know,
was a PR thing.
L. Ron Hubbard's quote, I guess it's the aims of Scientology, right? To create a civilization without criminality, insanity, and one where honest beings have rights.
Yeah.
That quote is what is used to justify the position that Scientology holds, where as a Scientologist, you are not allowed to join the military. It does not matter what branch. You are very actively discouraged from it. And it's ironic because it's one of the things in L. Ron Hubbard's life that Scientology promotes the most, that he was in the Navy.
Yeah.
And yet Scientologists are told, whoa, you can't join the military. You can't join up to a fighting force when the aim of his Scientology is to create a civilization without war. And you're like, well, then how do you parade around L. Ron Hubbard's military service like you guys are pro-military, support the troops, but you're telling your own members that they can't do it? There's, oh my God. Scientology, particularly locally here in Clearwater, Florida, when it comes to Veterans Day, oh my God, Scientology donates so much money to all these veterans groups. Oh, they even have a Scientology plaque on the wall at the Veterans Memorial right across the street. Flag. The Flag Service Organization was one of the sponsors of this Veterans Memorial, and yet they actively prevent their members from joining the military. Just an interesting little piece of hypocrisy.
What is the reason given? Because I didn't have a personal experience with that. Like none of my kids were going into the military. No one I knew. But now that you're saying that, I'm like, oh my gosh. I was trying to think, do I know anyone who was in Scientology and the military at the same time? I did know a few in Hawaii because there's so much military, but they weren't hardcore. They were like doing beginner courses and things like that. What do you know, like what was the shakedown about it? Like what would they say? What was the reason given?
Well, so this one's interesting because there's not any one policy that explicitly says Scientologists aren't allowed to join the military. It is the two things that would be cited is one, that it seems to be contrary to the aims of Scientology, and two, the fact that anyone who is involved in military intelligence is an illegal PC. They are not allowed to get Scientology auditing for the rest of this lifetime.
Mhm.
And the one way to make sure you don't get into military intelligence is to not get into the military.
Yeah. So maybe it's like avoiding the psychs, avoiding the psychiatrist is you don't, keeping people out of the military to begin with. It's so
Well, that's
the
right.
level of control is so ridiculous. We can't see us. I remember being terrified of seeing a school counselor. But the thing about the military is something I've not really thought of. And you're right. I can't think of anybody in all that time who had a professional military career and was a hardcore Scientologist. There has to be one somewhere.
Well, right. So if you were an active member of the military and you walked into a Scientology organization to do an introductory service,
Yeah.
being in the military is not disqualifying. They will let you in once they've established you're not in intelligence in any way.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why I said it's not like it's totally against the rules, but
Yeah.
but if you are a Scientologist and you want to join the military, then they're like, oh no, don't do that. One of the things you mentioned, staying out of the hands of the psychs, that's another perfect example. When you're in the military, technically the government owns you. I say technically, but I don't mean literally, but it might also kind of be a little bit literal.
They have a lot of say in how you live your life.
Well, and someone who actually knows what they're talking about can jump into the live chat and let's see if someone can opine on this. But like, if you're on active duty and they send you to a therapist or a psychologist or a counselor, I don't think you can say no.
Yeah.
But like I said, I'm not speaking from experience here, but it would be the same argument for why Scientologists want to keep their kids out of public school for the most part.
Yeah.
Is when they're in public school, they're in the hands of the psychs.
The psychs.
Well, that's the other thing. If you're in the military, Scientologists are going to make that argument that no, the government controls the military. The psychs control the government. Yeah. The psychs control everything outside of Scientology. So no, you're not going to join the military.
Do you think, Aaron, too, that it might be, it's when you think about it, it's such projection, because here's Scientology back in the 70s infiltrating 136 different government entities. Like they were fighting their way in to get into those offices and infiltrate. And now they're like, oh, no, you cannot work. You work for the IRS? Oh, no. You work for the FBI? Your uncle worked for the FBI? No, we're good.
Right. I see Phil Jones is saying if they join the military, they won't be available for full Scientology commitment. Yeah,
that's totally true.
It just occurred to me as well that Scientology is so paranoid about being infiltrated by the government.
Yeah, because they infiltrated the government. They don't even see. It's like, even in Scientology, it's what's the saying? The overt speaketh loudly.
The overt doth speak loudly in accusation.
Loudly in accusation, exactly. You're so worried about being infiltrated. You literally had 11 Scientologists be sentenced to prison, including L. Ron Hubbard's own wife, and you're worried about being infiltrated? People are not trying to break down the doors to infiltrate Scientology. We already know all your business. We don't need to infiltrate you. We're out here talking about your business.
You know, you just jogged my memory. I was talking to a friend of a friend last night who just happens to be a former IRS agent in the 501c3 department. And he pointed out to me something I'd never occurred to me before, how little the IRS actually cares about anything to do with 501c3s, because he goes, why would they bother? There's no tax revenue in it for them. And I was like, that didn't even occur to me. The IRS is going to go after people from whom they can collect taxes. It's not, they don't give a shit really about regulating the 501c3 world. And you might go, well, wouldn't they give a shit about revoking 501c3 statuses so that they can then get money? And you're like, you want to talk about, like, that is definitely not the lowest hanging fruit for the IRS.
True.
Right? And that's why it's such a tough hill to climb on getting tax exempt status revoked, is like, there's already so much money out there available for the IRS to get, right? Mm-hmm. If Scientology only has a few billion, and maybe, who knows, maybe with all the fundraising over the last 20 years, maybe it's 5 billion. Are you kidding? The IRS loses $5 billion between its couch cushions. and so if they're going to take on a 5, 10, 15, 20-year legal battle with Scientology, just even if they took all of Scientology's revenue, would be like a little blip on their radar. He was actually explaining some stuff to me last night that I was like, why did that not occur to me? That this is like not high on the priority of the IRS. But it also is another argument for why, we're happy to hear, we're happy to be here helping move Scientology closer and closer to the cliff of its demise, just by doing what we can to get the truth of Scientology out there, regardless of what the IRS may or may not do. It's still a worthy goal, though. I still like to, think that we're working towards that goal.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I think more and more, I've never heard so many people that are, writing to their elected officials. And now in Denmark, if you go to sptv.space, there's a whole page dedicated to Denmark. And in Denmark, because Scientology does not have tax exempt status, they're just a cult there. Anyone, anywhere, Miriam from Scientology up north was saying, can go and write a letter and do something and say something. Whereas here in the United States, if you're not in that elected official's jurisdiction, they don't care about you. They don't care. And what you said makes so much sense, Aaron, about how with the IRS not wanting, like, what's their motivation to do it because it's not financial. I think it's very common where we think that something should be done because it aligns with our values, but that organization, person, or entity, that's not actually their job. That's not what they're doing. So they're not going to just take those steps on their own. It's, I think, so much is finding the people where it aligns with their values and their mission. And then you start getting more things, you start getting them done. But when you try to force, a square peg into a round hole, like the IRS is not going to care, going at them and saying, hey, this is how much money you can collect. You're right. That's not going to align with what they're trying to do because they have other ways.
Right.
But I'm just realizing that's actually kind of a mistake sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see what some other folks have to say here. Asun, I never know if I'm saying this right. Do
I
you
would
happen
say ASIN. I say ASIN.
Asun?
I say
like that.
ASIN because Reese says ASIN, and ASIN, we may never know.
Asun, send me an email with how to the right way to pronounce this. Asun says, I have the feeling that many people close their eyes to the doings of Scientology because they can't. Is that you dinging?
No.
You didn't hear that ding?
I did. It's
That's
totally
okay.
me. I'm not admitting it. It's my dang family chat always gets me. I don't know how to shut off my family on the do not disturb.
Oh my goodness. Okay. I have the feeling that many people close their eyes to the doings of Scientology because they can't grasp the fact that this can happen in the US.
Yes.
Low
Ding,
confront
ding,
of
ding,
evil.
ding. Yes. Exactly what we're talking about.
No one says
on.
by definition, confront of evil is to face it without flinching and avoiding. That's right. That's the actual literal definition in Scientology. Let's see.
Isn't it funny when you think about suppressive people and these SPs and people live streaming outside Scientology, and they cannot face them without flinching or avoiding, which is the literal definition in Scientology of confronting. Or if you were to confront evil, if you see somebody out there with a disagreement or saying things about Scientology you don't agree with, avoiding them by definition is not confronting evil. But the few Scientologists who have stopped to have a conversation, it was different. And it's interesting to see that there are some people who do that. Aaron, you really got to shut your phone off because that dinging is going to make me nuts.
I can tell you how to turn it off. On your MacBook, do you already have it set to do not disturb?
Yeah, it's on do not disturb because my phone is on do not disturb. But because they're in my favorites, I'm going to unfavorite my entire family. Because I want them to because at night I put my phone on do not disturb, but I want my family to get through if need be.
Oh, I get it.
No.
Oh, Candace says Sean Combs talked about Scientology. Oh, Candace, you got to send me a link and a timestamp. Send it to both of us.
What?
Galen209, welcome as a new channel member to one of our channels. What's this? Stephanie Teague, Lou M. Taylor, the business manager, used Scientology lawyers on some of her legal issues. Okay. Joe Buchanan says, did you see the clip on a chat show where Ashton is on with another actress and they mention how Danny Masterson had a bet that Ashton would kiss the actress when she was 14 and he was 19 for The Ranch? Yeah. No, actually that was for that 70s show. I did see that. Yeah. And the kiss was in the script. It was whether he was going to be inappropriate. Well, okay, you said it, not me. Okay.
That's pretty PG.
I have to raise my confront of evil on that.
Yeah, get in your confront of evil, Aaron. Get your TRs in.
Popcorning Piggies, welcome as a channel member. Okay. Lady Pamela says, I keep thinking about the clams
Mm.
that Nat mentioned today.
We had a whole
What is
conversation about this, Aaron, about Phil Jones did a video where he shared the part in A History of Man by L. Ron Hubbard that said basically, because one day, way, way, way back when, we were clams on the shore. We came up onto the shore and we would open our mouths and water would come in and it would go out. But eventually we started to evolve and start to grow lungs. So when the water came, it made us anxious. So our time of being clams and transitioning from water to breathing air is at the core of our anxiety as humans. So saith L. Ron Hubbard.
Yes. I always wondered why I get so anxious in bodies of water, but now I know.
Yeah, it's
Thank
not
you,
the
L.
sharks. It's because you were a clam.
Naja Johansson. So L. Ron Hubbard already wrote about plausible deniability.
Oh,
It's
huge.
actually incredible. I never quite thought of the responsibilities of leaders as being that, but it literally is
Yeah.
church policy baking plausible deniability into the very DNA of the organization itself.
Yeah. Get it done, but I don't want to know how you did it.
Yeah. And I did a whole dedicated video. It was actually probably a year and a half or 2 years ago now. And I think because I thought it was such a fascinating subject about this, because I gave it a very scandalous title, like, does Scientology authorize hits on its enemies?
Oh,
And it was just going to be an argument over whether they, based on this policy, could this policy justify that?
yeah.
And, I started the video by saying, for the record, my opinion and my answer to this question is no, they do not. I think the body of evidence shows that they're pretty much willing to do everything up to that point, because everything they do to harass critics and journalists and everything, it would be just so much easier to have people killed and cheaper too. And I
Mm.
said, but, if Scientology were to do that, here would be the justification in Scientology for doing it. Because I know there's people out there who think that Scientology does have people killed, and they think that we're apologists if we ever say that they don't. But let me ask you, what is your take on this? Would Scientology, would you expect Scientology to have its enemies actually taken out?
I would not expect them to do that just based on experience, but I do believe that they would put people in a position. Think about what they try to do. They might not go and hire a hitman to take you out, but what they will do is use reverse auditing, black science, black Dianetics, all of that to try to put you. They will try to gaslight you so badly that you become ineffective and want to then unalive yourself. I would say they take that approach more
Yeah.
than they do. They're not going to put the hit out on you. They're going to put you to put the hit out on yourself. And they're going to do it through mind control manipulation and gaslighting you to the point where you feel overwhelmed and feel you have no other solution, no way out, denying help. Whitney Mills, denying help. You know, she had to have had doubts.
I was just going to say that they would much rather figure out how to get you to off yourself than open themselves up to the liability or the potential liability of being involved and having it done to you.
Exactly. L. Ron Hubbard said, we rather have you dead than incapable. That is at the beginning of every major service in Scientology. We all had to read it, do clay demos about it, all of the things. And it completely sets the scene up to where that is accepted. In fact, I'm not aware that there's another religion out there where unaliving yourself is so acceptable, where it is so, if you try and you fail, you're psychotic. But if you do it and it benefits Scientology, well, that's okay, because you're just going to go get another body again. Look at the Scientologists too, who like Rex Fowler, operating Thetan level 8, businessman, shoots his business partner and then does it to himself, except he's still around. Now he's in prison with a really jacked up, he shot himself in the face. But it's like, this was at the pinnacle of the top of Scientology. So was Whitney Mills. So you can't tell me these people were, huh?
Did Rex try to shoot himself after he shot his partner?
Yeah, he
I
did.
did not realize that.
He did.
Wow.
Yeah, somebody can look it up. Rex Fowler, Scientologist, shoots partner and tries to unalive himself. and he failed.
Not very competent then, was he? I was in the Sea Org with his son, Alex Fowler.
Oh, no way. Was this before or after Rex did what he did?
Before.
Before.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
OG8. This guy was OG8, like top of the Scientology bridge, and so was Whitney Mills. So what makes Scientologists think, but a lot of them don't know this, I guess that's probably the thing. It helped to open my eyes more when I started learning about this, because when I was wanting to leave Scientology, I was feeling incredibly overwhelmed and depressed and unhappy and just not in a good place. And I think it's very interesting that when we express doubts or concerns about Scientology and you're an active Scientologist, they then want to put you into an interrogation or session to help. And what it really becomes is turning you in on yourself. What is wrong with you? What crimes do you have that you're doubting Scientology? We need to get off your overts and your withholds. So then you start looking inward and you think it's you. And it's this overwhelming thing with no actual real help available for the mental health crisis that you're in.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take a look at this one. What does this mean? Fat Cat's Heaven says there's an old adage that says the steps to getting there are the qualities of being there. Using deceit, manipulation, fraud, and threats will not yield different results, in my opinion.
Mm.
I'd have to read this again. What do you take away from this?
To me, that basically means that if you have to screw over people and violate your own moral code or your own values to get there, you don't really get there, because you're not, I guess if you're being your authentic self, right? If the steps to getting there are the qualities of being there. So if you're going to get there, at least my takeaway is it's kind of like you have to be the change. If you want to see something change, you have to be that change. If you want,
can't use unvirtuous means to achieve a virtuous thing. However you get there is how you are when you get there. Yeah, however you are as you're getting there is how you are once you get there. That's how I take this. Is that how you take it?
Yeah. I think that's basically it. That's how I tend to see it. And I can see that happening in Scientology. Doesn't believe that. It's the opposite. You can use deceit, manipulation, fraud, and threats to get there. And that is what doesn't, that is the habit and the neural pathway that becomes very strong for people in Scientology. I can use deceit, I can manipulate, I can threaten, I can commit fraud, because it's in the name of you. It's this zealot cult mentality of this black and white thinking of you're with us or you're against us. And if you're against us, then I can do these things to you. It's such cult mentality, and exactly what Scientology and especially the Sea Org is based off of.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. One more time for anyone who, or another time, is not yet familiar, you can find Natalie's channel at Scientology, Life After a Cult. And for any of you joining a little more recently, you can find the SPTV Foundation YouTube channel right here, where later this week, we will be posting updates on recent news about the foundation. Okay, let's see. We've got Clearwater Chad. Hello, Clearwater Chad. Good to see you. Candace says, Ashton was a Diddy close friend and fan. It's disgusting. The ish I saw. Okie dokie. Danny S says, I'm really interested in how many celebrities will get wrapped up in all this. Yes. Do we think Diddy will meet an unfortunate demise in custody, or do we think he will actually make it? Like, I guess it depends. If we think that Jeffrey Epstein had dirt on so many powerful people that he was never going to be allowed to live to see the inside of a courtroom, do we not think Diddy has dirt on equally powerful people? Or maybe it was just slightly less powerful people?
No, I totally think so. I don't expect him to make it out of there at all, unless they put him somewhere, like he cuts a deal and goes, look, I'll give you the names, but you better take me out of here and put me somewhere where I can really be safe and protected. I don't know, maybe it's different with celebrities versus people who work in politics. I feel like it's a different beast. With celebrities, there's almost a level. Look at rock stars, right? The stereotypical trashing hotel rooms. I mean, I don't think that's done anymore. but that way of behaving, you get away with that more. Whereas if you're the mayor of a city and you go trash a hotel room, it's like it's not going to land the same way, but Kid Rock does it or somebody else. And it's like, oh, yeah, they're an artist.
You don't think the rock stars are trashing hotel rooms anymore?
I haven't heard it. I hope they're not, because that is just one of the more juvenile things. I never understood it. Oh, you destroyed things and you made a mess? Oh, that's so adult of you. I just don't understand.
You're right. The climate really has changed, or the culture per se. I mean, instead of,
Yeah, we don't accept that.
instead of like, Def Leppard, we've got BTS.
Mhm.
I don't see a bunch of young Korean boys trashing a hotel room.
Not that we've heard. Now, I think that, maybe there's some other version of that, but we're also dealing with a whole nother generation that wasn't brought up to believe that it's okay to behave and do those. I mean, I think it's a good thing. I think it's in a direction of where we more want humanity to go, where we're not doing things like that, especially when you have fans who are, you can have such influence over. Maybe we don't want to glorify and glamorize vandalism of someone else's property, not respecting someone else's property. When you rent a room, it doesn't belong to you. There's this level of entitlement that goes with it. I just think it's worse for it. I feel like sometimes celebrities, maybe I'm just slamming on musicians too much, get a pass on some, not great behavior that way. Because, I mean, look at what's his name, Russell Brand. Just back in his days before, I think he's either sober or California sober now. I'm not sure, but did quite a bit of that heavy partying and but actually trashing hotel rooms and things. It was like, well, you don't hear about that as much. Even out here in Minnesota, in the Twin Cities, the bands and stuff that come through don't want to stay in the places where they always would have stayed. They want to stay in a nice house on the lake with a yoga room and a sauna and a cold plunge. It's just, I don't know. I think it is different.
Yeah. I mean, in a world where everyone's got a camera in their pocket, being at a hotel, if you're a super big celebrity, is probably not all it's cracked up to be or used to be cracked up to be.
Yeah.
I can see that. Much better to be in a nice secluded Airbnb.
Exactly.
Or VRBO or whatever.
But maybe the whole thing with Diddy is they're not doing it in a hotel room anymore. This is another level of doing it on a larger scale in a private residence and thinking it's going to stay secret, which I guess it did for a long time until it didn't anymore.
Yeah. Someone's asking a question about this is what you were discussing in your live stream this morning when it got cut off due to the service.
Yeah.
Stasiana, what happened with Adele's house in Scientology? The live cut off earlier, and we never got to find out. So did Adele say that Scientology was trying to buy her house?
There's a comedian that says that he's connected to her and heard the story that Scientology wants to buy her house because it's near St. Hill in England. And it also just so happens to be a spot of a lot of UFO sightings. So I don't know if Scientology is planning some big Xenu comeback or the, loyal officers or the Galactic Federation, some type of meetup. I don't know, but it's strange. But then, who knows why they want to buy the house? Maybe they're doing another residence for L100's return. Who knows?
Yeah. Isn't it funny that so many people sort of popularly, pop culturally think that Scientologists worship Xenu when in L. Ron Hubbard's mythology, Xenu is a bad guy.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why
But maybe they think that perhaps Xenu's eternally powered electronic prison was relocated from somewhere in the Himalayas to underneath Adele's house. And they just want to be able to like excavate and just keep eyes on him, make sure he's
sure. Was it in the Himalayas where Xenu is said to be? I know he's being held in an electronic prison, but was it the Himalayas? I never really could remember where it was or if I even knew.
That's what I recall. But you have to remember, I was exposed to all of the Xenu information after I was out of Scientology.
I was exposed to it in Scientology, and I vaguely recall that he's in an electronic cage, that he's being held, but I don't recall where it is, because you know what I thought would be fun? You know how L. Ron Hubbard went on his wacky boat trips looking for stuff he left behind in a past life and all that? What if
Yeah.
we won a trip? We should go on a trip and film it and call it Finding Xenu.
I'd go to the Himalayas for that.
Yeah.
Finding Xenu.
Finding Xenu. Is he held somewhere in a electronic cage?
Why would Scientology want to buy that property just because it's close to St. Hill? They've had like 40 or 50 years to snap up property around St. Hill. Is that something that they've done? Kind of like, Scientology buys all the property in downtown Clearwater just as a buffer to keep people away from the base. Have they done something similar to that in St. Hill over the decades?
I can't say for sure, but it is their MO. It is what they do. They start buying up properties around there. But I feel like this one, there's a little bit more to it. It's apparently in a place that's kind of isolated. Are they looking to turn it in for, and who knows, it might be Scientology trying to buy it for Tom Cruise or something, so he can have a place there. Or maybe David Miscavige is going to go there. I don't know.
That's exactly what I was just thinking. Maybe Dave wanted a nice place to stay where he didn't have to sleep with the rank and file or anywhere in the vicinity of the rank and file Sea Org members, and it would be a place for Tom to stay so that he doesn't have to helicopter in from London for the IAS event. And although I'm sure they like him helicoptering in because it's kind of a nice little display.
It's a good prop. I feel like with them trying to do this, I wish I was there right now, because I would go outside St. Hill and put on a really nice dress and bring a microphone and just go, "Hello, it's me." Just right outside the gates of St. Hill with my, do some karaoke or just lip sync the song. You want to buy my house?
Oh my goodness.
Helicopter would come. I bet she would come. We could do it. We could write a whole song and do it. Hello.
Let me see. What else do we have here? My youngest is going to have a volleyball game in about 30 minutes, and I need to give myself enough time to get over to the school. But let's see. I'm looking through some of these great starred comments.
I saw a comment, "Do not worry about the yellow rag that I used at Aaron's desk yesterday to blow my nose. I did put it in the laundry."
I saw that. I did see that. Yes. Thank you for that.
Didn't leave it out there.
Let me see here. Dawn Gloves. Wasn't Dawn one of the people in Miami this weekend?
Yeah, we were in the pool with her.
Okay, good.
And we got to meet her daughter. Yeah.
Okay, good. Having conversation with someone at work who I truly think is being stalked by Scientology because they think she's someone else.
Ooh, girl, email me. I need to hear more about this. Natalie@lifeafteroccult.com.
Cheryl says, "Make your body thetan. Click that like button."
That's right.
Yes, everyone.
Look at all my body thetans, Cheryl. Can you see them? I brought them all back. I have 3 now of the bigger ones. She meant for 2 of them to go to my grandkids, but I'm a little bit like, I like them. I'll let
my
them
kids
play when they come over.
My kids were in love with the body thetans that they got this weekend.
I love it so
when we
much.
got home, Brisbane was like, "Dad, did you remember to pack my body thetan?" I was like, "Yes." And the little miniature sunglasses that came with it. And she's like, "Oh, thank goodness. Thank goodness."
Oh, that's so cute. That is so cute.
Here's one. Buckled Up Buttercup. How did you guys actually feel about doing clay demos when you were in? It just sounds so odd. How did you feel?
I liked it. It was a break from having to read or listen to tapes, and you got to play with clay. And I don't know, I found it broke the monotony. So I welcomed the clay demos. It was, you could think about other things while you did it. I mean, they didn't want you to do that, but I did. So I found it to be a break from all that reading and listening to L. Ron Hubbard's voice. What about you?
I, on the other hand, hated everything about them. My goal was to get through the course as fast as possible. I thought the clay demos were ridiculous. I never experienced anything helpful from doing a clay demo ever. I thought they were insane, and I thought they made courses take needlessly longer than they had to. But actually, earlier on, well, I guess before 1996, if you were what they called a fast flow student, which means you had finished the student hat course and you had finished your method 1 word clearing, you
Mhm.
did not have to do clay demos when they appeared on a check sheet. You could be made to do them with a pink sheet, but you could skip them on your course. After 1996, David Miscavige decided he did not like this anymore.
Mm.
He decided that everybody had been misinterpreting the technical bulletin on this subject forever. I guess that included L. Ron Hubbard. And after that point, you had to do all clay demos that appeared on your check sheet, even if you were fast flow. And honestly, I just hated it. I was like, this is insane. This is like, it's one of the stupidest things. Like, there are some helpful things in the study materials that Scientologists have to abide by, but but you just thought it broke up the
I
monotony.
liked playing with the clay. I liked the smell of the clay. You just roll it, make the little round head super perfectly, and then put the little label on it. I got to learn it. For me, it was like arts and crafts time. And it was a
Yeah.
break, especially when I was a full-time student when I was 15 and went to Los Angeles to train as a staff member in Hawaii. You're like 8:30 till like 10 o'clock at night, 7 days a week, just studying L. Ron Hubbard and Scientology. So for me, those clay demos were a break. A little bit of cardio, rounding the head, rolling the bodies, doing the arms, and you got to use knives.
I just remember how thrilled I would be if I got to the clay table and somebody had already done a bunch of clay demos and there was a bunch of pre-made little, man figures, because it
Yeah.
takes a lot of time to roll them and cut the arms and cut the legs and make the head and the eyes and the whatevers. I was like, oh, thank God there's 20 pre-made clay men in the bucket already. This will be a little faster.
And the reason for it, I'm so sorry about my family.
You can right click. You should be able to right click on them as a contact and either do silence notifications or
Of the chat.
no.
Oh,
Well, yeah, on the chat itself, the entire chat.
yeah.
Yeah,
Hide alerts. Yeah.
there you go. Hide alerts. Bada boom.
Let's see if that works.
Okay, let's see. Matt Elliott, MAA, SPTV Canada, just jumping in on my work break. Welcome back, AA Ron. Happy to be back, Matt Elliott. Thank you. Lena on me says, according the Diddy allegations and Amber Heard trial, they do trash hotels, but they have people on staff to fix it all. Well,
Oh my
okay.
goodness. At least they fix it, take some responsibility for it. But I don't understand that. I don't get that. It's like if I'm having a great time, I like to be in a beautiful aesthetic, a nice room. Okay, that didn't work. But I just can't imagine. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something. Like I don't know. I don't understand the motivation for trashing a space.
Yeah. Casey Cat says, I'm tardy, so I'm already over here standing in the corner and catching up. Always so glad to see my two faves making Scientology confront their ruin. Oh, I like that.
Oh yeah. Good to see you, Casey Cat. She's out in Kansas City. I got to meet her when I was out there with when I saw Z News and Auditing Scientology.
Nice. Oh, I tell you what you can do before you go live. You can text your family chat and say, do not text me until you hear otherwise.
I know, I swear to God, it's like they know. Oh, thank you,
Cat.
Casey Cat.
There you go. Awesome. Okay, so I actually do have to dip
All right.
for this volleyball game. So how about we wrap it up right here? Let's show everyone your channel once again. You can find Natalie, Scientology, Life After a Cult right there on YouTube, folks. Anything else that you'd care to say or ask before we end this live stream?
Nope. Abraham was saying we forgot something. Y'all forgot
What?
your screen here. I found it afterwards. What screen?
Screen.
Abraham, you got to tell us.
Oh, is this something that he made?
No. I got my Sins of Scientology t-shirt and water bottle. I'm super excited to be breaking that out.
Yeah, Abraham, shoot me an email. Let me know what you're talking about there.
Yeah, or text me.
All right, folks, we got to jump. Thank you for hanging out with us, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click